Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have to talk about the three biggest theater chains flipping. That's right, AMC, Regal, and Cinemark are all backing David Ellison's Paramount-Warner Brothers merger. That is something significant after months of industry resistance. Let's just say lots of things have changed. What changed? Well, a promise of 30 films a year is probably one of the biggest changes for the big screen, and the theater trade group is suddenly calling for a deal. What does that tell us? Well, there's a real story here. Let's get to it. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. Please double check you're subscribed to the channel. That's it on that. If you want to, hit the thumbs up button now or at the end of the video, and don't forget to comment. It does help. So we had a lot going on the last few months when it comes to the theater chains. They have been clamoring for new film releases left and right. There haven't been enough this summer to basically offset what we had in the early part of the year. The January, February, March drag that we have been having now for many years in a row. And it seems like if you talk to the normies, there are fewer and fewer people going to see movies in theaters, which is a problem. Exhibitors need that traffic. It also keeps other businesses alive that are surrounding the theater chains. It might even bring back malls, and in some case it has, but that's not what this video is about. Let's jump into the main story. You see, Cinemark has joined Regal and AMC in supporting the Paramount-Warner Brothers merger as movie theaters opposition has crumbled. Look, you can still have the United Cinemas or whatever other trade group there might be, but they don't hold a candle to what actually needs to happen. And what's interesting is the article over on IndieWire is a great starting place because it really does bring to light all of the differences that have happened over the course of time. Cinemark joining Regal and AMC is the difference maker. That means that the world's three largest exhibitors, the people with the most to win or the most to lose, have all given their blessing to a union that the other theater owners fear will leave them with fewer movies on the screen, which isn't true because it's not like they're going to not distribute to the regional theaters. That's a bunch of malarkey, and even the attorneys general that have brought this case know it. It's a huge blow to those attorneys general that have been holding this up, in part because they argue it'll hurt exhibitors. Well, the exhibitors don't agree. Cinemark has called for an expedited resolution of the proposed Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers Discovery merger. It added that the prolonged uncertainty runs the risk of diverting time and resources away from producing the next wave of blockbusters. In other words, there's a clock ticking. And you know what? I agree with that 100%. There is a clock ticking. It's been ticking for a while, and that ticking clock becomes more of a factor for Paramount and another reason to get out of California, because California and Rob Bonta, along with the other blue states that are forcing this issue, are harming the industry. And they're only doing it for political reasons, at least at this point, because all the other reasoning that was put in place to argue that this wasn't a good decision by the federal government or any of the other governments around the world that could have held this deal up, well, that they know better as states, which they don't. Watch the states that are talking about this. States like California, which is crumbling, and their governors continuing to run it into the ground. Imagine this Ram Bonta fella deciding to become governor of the state. Could you imagine how destroyed the state would be at that point? Anyway, Cinemark's endorsement has been rumored for more than a week. In fact, I'd heard about it a couple of weeks ago before I went to D23. And it comes less than 2 weeks after Regal CEO Eduardo Acuna announced that he was throwing in his lot with David Ellison. AMC chief Adam Aron was the original defector, shifting his support behind the deal last spring during CinemaCon, which, guess what, is the biggest showcase of films they have every single year. They promise to make good on 30 movies annually to theaters, and if you own a theater chain, you need it. desperately. We should be seeing summer movie of about $200 million every weekend, starting even back in May, running through the end of August. And it's been a long time since we've done that. We've struggled to get to 200 million, and we wouldn't have even eclipsed it, I don't believe, without Spider-Man Brand New Day. But that's a story for another time, which I've already covered. However, Paramount's recent decision to put those commitments in writing has alleviated Cinemark and other franchises' concerns. The company has pledged to not only make 30 films annually over 3 years, but it will also adhere to an exclusive 45-day theatrical window and a 90-day window before movies debut on streaming. Those terms are as good as they are getting from any other studio at this point, making it an offer Cinemark couldn't refuse. Plus, no one is coming close to producing as many films as Paramount says it will in post-merger conversations. And you know what? It's not just that Paramount will be able to expand its production. It's that you have two classic studio lots for now in California. I think, and I've said as much to exhibitor relations and other places that are trying to argue that this is a bad idea, that you basically are killing production in Hollywood if you walk away from this in this manner. California needs production in Hollywood. It's hundreds of millions of dollars a year, billions, you could argue, with the major studios. And running out of town or running an entire studio out of town on a rail is not what the doctor ordered. You need David Ellison and his money, and you need this partnership to proceed as planned. But it's even less harmful than I would argue that the Fox-Disney deal was at the time. Fox-Disney was a bad idea that they allowed to come to fruition. But now we're going to say that by having more movies instead of less, that this is a bad deal? I don't think so. According to Variety, Cinemark joining AMC Theaters and Regal in supporting Paramount-Warner Brothers Discovery merger is, well, kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. With the statement reading, "The enduring success of our industry requires a healthy theatrical ecosystem supported by financially sound studios and exhibitors that can effectively create, distribute, and exhibit high-quality films to consumers around the world. And we join those who have recently called for the expedited resolution of the proposed Paramount-Skydance-Warner Brothers Discovery merger, as prolonged uncertainty runs the risk of diverting time and resources away from achieving these priorities." Look, there's no arguments to be made here anymore. They desperately need this deal to happen. California, whether or not they want to admit it, needs this deal to happen. And if Paramount walks out the door in California, and when this merger successfully completes, which it will, and takes other studios with them, that would be a financial disaster that the likes of Ron Bonta, Gavin Newsom, and other people that are politically trying to make this thing null and void are going to end up answering for. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe there are enough people left in California to vote blue no matter who. But honestly, and a lot of people try to say this to me all the time, this isn't a political issue. It's 100% a political issue. Even exhibitor relations on X, again, I went back and forth with them, were trying to argue that, well, the studio's punishing people that are working in the industry. And I'm like, no, the state and attorneys general are punishing the people that work in the industry. It's not the studios. The studios are already fighting the higher costs of doing things in California, along with the higher wages, a terrible set of union deals, and many other factors that I think have been hurting the movie industry for a long time. And I've said as much for a long time. So look, you can either look favorably or unfavorably at media consolidation. The question is, which is the actual story? We have consistently stated we would look favorably upon media consolidation that increases the quality and output of films released into theaters with sufficient marketing campaigns and theatrical windows, and it is backed by firm commitments to ensure follow-through. Paramount is now offering to put those pledges into written commitments and consent decrees. These are conditions and formal assurances that align with our long-held views, which we at Cinemark support. In other words, where's the argument? you're getting exactly what you want in the form of a contract, which is enforceable, which there is a financial accounting for at the end of the day if somebody decides to behave badly. Do you think David Ellison and his newfound $111 billion studio system isn't going to behave properly? Yeah, I don't think so. I think Ellison is going to continue forward with this and is going to make it successful. But hey, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments section down below. Do you believe that the Paramount-Warner Brothers Discovery merger is good for the industry? Is it bad for the industry? And either way, let me know why. Because a lot of you may be working with some bad information provided by the mainstream, which just don't look at this as we do. They look at it through a political prism of, oh no, who's going to control CNN? Rather than, well, oh no, we're not going to have enough movies to keep these theater chains in business, and it's going to hit employment across the country and across the globe. Again, bigger issues afoot than those of the attorneys general who are just trying to protect political positioning. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just trying to watch better movies.